Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. This is News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. ISRO launches India's latest weather satellite, Naughty Boy. After successful launch, ISRO says the Naughty Boy has behaved obediently.
Naughty Boy has now become and matured as a very obedient and disciplined boy. And so like PSLV, GSLV has also become a very robust vehicle for ISRO.
India's External Affairs Minister Jaiswal attends the Munich Security Conference, meets the US, EU, British counterparts, among other world leaders. The Indian Air Force conducts mega air and land exercise Vayu Shakti 24, showcasing India's air power and depth of indigenization. Another Yashasvi Jaiswal century and Shubman Gill 50, an unbeaten one, give India a sizable lead on day 3 of the Rajkot Test. Hosts India lead England by 322 runs at stumps. India achieved another milestone in its use of geosynchronous orbits for weather studies on Saturday evening, with the successful launch of its third-generation meteorological satellite, INSAT 3DS. The satellite aims to monitor the Earth's surface and carry out oceanic observations. Let's look at this report.
3, 2, 1,
L40 stages
0.
are ignited.
ISRO's satellite INSAT 3DS aboard GSLV F-14 successfully took off from Sriharikota, Andhra Pradesh on Saturday. Known as Naughty Boy, this satellite aimed to provide the vertical profile of various meteorological parameters of the atmosphere and boasts satellite-aided search and rescue services. Congratulating the team, mission director said, Naughty Boy is behaving obediently.
The Naughty Boy has now become and matured as a very obedient and disciplined boy. And so like PSLV, GSLV has also become a very robust vehicle for ISRO. So I congratulate and salute all the ISRO family members on this occasion.
This geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle, GSLV, is a 3-stage 51.7 meter long launch vehicle having a lift-off mass of 420 tons. The first stage comprises a solid propellant motor having 139-ton propellant and 4 Earth storable propellant stages strap-ons which carry 40 tons of liquid propellant in each. The second stage is also an Earth storable propellant stage loaded with 40-ton propellant. The third stage is a cryogenic stage with a 15-ton propellant loading of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. Funded by the Ministry of Earth Sciences, the primary objectives of the mission are to monitor Earth's surface, carry out oceanic observations and its environment in various spectral channels of meteorological importance.
We have a 38,000 plus kilometer apogee has been accomplished with no other issues with respect to inclination. So it's a very perfect mission. Little over performance that has been given to the satellite, which increases its life, as already told by Director URSC. And all of you know this satellite is a third in the series of INSAT series of satellites meant for the weather and the disaster warning related activities.
Various departments of the Ministry of Earth Sciences, including Indian Meteorology Department, will be utilizing the satellite data to provide improved weather forecasts and meteorological services. With Aisha Khanam in Bengaluru, Faiz Khan for DD India.
The second day of the Munich Security Conference deliberated largely on Europe needing to defend itself. The European leaders are of the opinion that they should be strong enough to defend themselves rather than rely on alliances like NATO. The Munich Security Report also seems to suggest the world is currently in a loss-loss rather than a win-win situation. Here's more.
Security was tight as hundreds of politicians, military officers and diplomats arrived in Munich for the three-day annual conference dubbed the Davos of Defense. The Munich Security Conference resumed on its second day. On its website, its security report did not make pleasant reading. At the moment, there is real risk that more and more countries end up in a lose-lose situation, which is no longer about who gains more, but only about who loses less. Arriving at the conference were Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The Munich Security Report points to not a win-win but a loss-loss world. It bases this analysis on more governments prioritizing relative payoffs rather than engaging in positive-sum cooperation and investments in an international order that benefits all.
At the time we can understand also that the United States and Germany, the United States and Europe are having a relation that is in the best shape it had for many years. And this is, there is a good reason for this, because of democracy, the rule of law, about our view on humankind, which we are sharing.
The report also stresses on the fact that the US national security strategy of the Indo-Pacific being the epicenter of the 21st century geopolitics. Most countries are looking to maintain good relations with both Washington and Beijing.
If Ukraine doesn't prevail against Putin, they will be watching in Iran, they'll be watching in China. Our allies will be wondering, are we good allies? Right. When we say we're going to help someone and support someone, we're going to see it through, or we're going to back off at the first sign of trouble. So I said it as someone who loves America, who wants America to be strong and powerful and the essential nation as our partner in the world.
India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, met US Secretary of State Antony Blinken on the sidelines of the conference on Friday. They discussed the situation in West Asia, Ukraine and Indo-Pacific, and also reviewed the continuing progress in India-US bilateral ties. Dr. Jaishankar also interacted with his counterparts from Canada, Germany and Argentina. He met the European Union Foreign Policy Chief and discussed issues related to bilateral cooperation and current global situation. India is the fastest growing large economy, a significant regional and global power, and the voice of the Global South. The Global Security Conference has been dominated by the wars in Ukraine and Israel. Zelensky urged allies to continue supporting Ukraine's defense, while Europe in general is deliberating on how to strengthen its own ability to defend itself.
Wir müssen mehr investieren.
We must invest more, we must invest better, and we must invest European, which is why we as the EU Commission will next month present a strategy on the European defence industry.
Zur europäischen Verteidigungsindustrie.
The Munich Security Conference is being held in Germany till the 18th of February. It is an opportunity to deliberate on the world's most pressing security challenges among the major stakeholders. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Trent Murray is now joining us from Munich with more on the story. Trent, the European Commission is going to present a defense industrial strategy proposal, and von der Leyen also seems to be talking about a European defense minister. What is the main reason for all this?
Well, namaste, Mark. I mean, frankly, what the Europeans are saying is that they are being outgunned by the Russians when it comes to manufacturing of key munitions, bullets, artillery shells and the like. And given the insecurity that we're seeing, particularly in Ukraine, there is a real concern, I think, amongst European capitals around not being prepared if the conflict is to spread further and to replenish the warehouses across Europe, which have largely been emptied over the past 2 years, given what has been handed over to Ukraine. So what Ursula von der Leyen is saying, the leader of the European Commission, is that look, we need to do more here. We need to work closely together. We need to pool our money, pool our resources, try and work on a long-term plan to ensure that we are prepared if the worst was to happen. It, of course, really just comes as defence really just does seem to be one of the main topics of conversation, not just here, but more broadly politically right now in Europe, given we are seeing just a number of conflicts and a number of flashpoints that are really keeping the diplomats up at night.
Indeed, and wars in West Asia and Ukraine are dominating discussions over there. What are some of the thoughts being expressed about, restoring stability?
Yeah, well, look, let's start with Ukraine because President Zelensky was just here a few hours ago where he made an incredibly impassioned speech to world leaders that had gathered, effectively calling on them to continue to support his country as it works to try and push back those Russians in the east. We know, of course, that in some places that war fatigue is setting in somewhat, including in the US. It's becoming a very political issue, the taxpayer funding of a foreign war, if you will, as some politicians describe it. But on that criticism, President Zelensky said, please don't ask Ukraine when the war will end. Ask yourself why Putin is still able to continue it. I think that was the message probably largely directed at Washington, given that multi-billion-dollar funding package is still being held up on Capitol Hill, given the political disagreements, particularly from some Republicans.
Indeed, and India's External Affairs Minister has had a series of meetings with his counterparts. What were the highlights of some of these meetings?
Well, Mark, one would imagine Dr. Jaishankar has had to have several cups of coffee because he has had a very busy schedule. I mean, I'm exhausted just following it. Let me read out some of the meetings he's had in the past 24 hours. He's spoken with his counterparts from the United States, EU, Argentina, Canada, Germany, Poland, Portugal, and the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina. We know that many of the countries here have been very eager to have a sit down with him and to talk about Delhi's perspective and views on some of these conflicts and flashpoints around the world. Dr. Jaishankar actually also did just join a panel with his American and German counterparts around spreading prosperity around the world. Let me just read a brief statement, if I could, from him, because I thought it was very interesting. He said, it's important to distinguish between being non-West and anti-West. I would categorize India as a country that is non-West, but has an extremely strong relationship with Western countries, which are getting better by the day. Mark.
Indeed, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Trent Murray, for putting that into perspective for us from Munich. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. The African Union leaders say that problems in the region have not diminished. New York court finds the former US President Donald Trump in a civil fraud case.
A platform for the developing world, amplifying the voice of the global south with a focus on the growing economies, resolving the conflicts, showcasing the culture, tradition, heritage and diversity. Watch Voice of the Global South at these times on DD India.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Now, regional and world leaders met at the annual African Union Summit in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, on Saturday. And speakers at the opening ceremony included the AU's Commission Chairperson, Moussa Faki Mahamat, who started by saying that the problems plaguing this continent, they have not gotten any better. Also, that this summit, it comes at a time when there have been multiple coups in West Africa, which Mahamat described as defiant.
Nos principaux défis n'ont pas diminué de prégnance.
Our main challenges have not diminished. Peace, political and institutional instability, climate change, deficits in economic governance, integration, poverty, the marginalization of women and young people in development processes, and leadership in our political and social systems remain our main sources of concern.
Demeurent nos principales sources de préoccupation.
And Isaac Lucando is joining us now from Dar es Salaam. Isaac, if you can hear me. We're going to be joining Isaac Lucando. As you can see, we are just tying up our audio connection with him. Isaac Lucando is in Dar es Salaam, and he'll put into context for us this important story about the African Union and their summit. They are deliberating on various issues. We shall return to Isaac as soon as we get our connection clear with him. In the meantime, in fact, here is Isaac. Isaac is with us. Isaac Lucando, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. What are the key, issues being discussed at the African Union meeting?
Well, on the agenda in this two-day summit is peace, development and integration. And on the point of development, there is a particular emphasis on education. In this first day of the summit, there was an unveiling of the theme this year, which focuses on providing education and skills for a 21st century Africa. And this comes on the backdrop of statistics from the World Bank that indicate that sub-Saharan Africa, come 2050, will have the youngest and the largest population, or the largest workforce in the world.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Isaac, also, how seriously is the issue of these military coups that seem to be taking place in Africa, affecting the stability of the African Union itself?
Well, it's a pretty big issue, and it's a subject of conversation, a hot button issue at the African Union Summit. We've had over the last 3 years, 7 coups in Africa, mostly taking place in West Africa. And it has caused a lot of division. Recently, we heard of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger talking about leaving the West African grouping ECOWAS, which wasn't contested as such. And this division is hampering efforts by the continent as a whole via the African Union to achieve some of its development goals. Today we heard a presidential dialogue that had African leaders pledging their commitment to see the realization of a monetary union and related financial institutions on the continent. And so when you have divisions because of these coups and other conflicts, it makes it very difficult to realize such lofty goals.
Isaac Lucando in Dar es Salaam, thanks very much. Moving on then to our next story, Israeli Defense Forces, they've continued to operate against Hamas in the Nasser hospital, and they uncovered medications with the names of Israeli hostages inside the hospital along with weapons. So on receiving a report regarding the failure of electrical systems within the hospital, the IDF troops worked to repair the generator while bringing an alternative one. And they also supplied food to infants and water to the hospital. Meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden has once again reiterated his call for a temporary ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict to allow the release of hostages still held by Hamas. The ceasefire calls followed talks between Biden and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this week.
Well, I've had extensive conversations with the Prime Minister of Israel over the last several days, almost an hour each. And I made the case, and I feel very strongly about it, that there has to be a temporary ceasefire to get the prisoners out, to get the hostages out. And that is underway. I'm still hopeful that that can be done.
The US and France sought to allay fears that Ukraine was being abandoned to fight a lonely battle against the Russian aggression. US Vice President Kamala Harris and French President Emmanuel Macron have both met Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, to reassure Ukraine that Europe and the United States continue to back Ukraine. Let's look at this report.
US Vice President Kamala Harris held talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. Speaking at a joint press conference alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, she said that US President Joe Biden's administration stood ready to support Ukraine in its war with Russia for as long as it takes.
We will work to make sure Russia pays damages to Ukraine, and ultimately, we want to see Ukraine emerge from this war as a nation that is free, democratic, and independent. President Zelensky, as President Joe Biden and I have made clear, we will be with you for as long as it takes.
Earlier, France and Ukraine signed a bilateral security agreement in Paris, including pledges from Paris to deliver more arms, train soldiers, and send up to 3 billion euros in military aid to Kiev this year.
In the framework of this agreement, France has pledged to spend up to 3 billion euros in additional military aid for Ukraine in 2024, following 1.7 billion euros in 2020 and 2.1 billion euros in 2023. France also pledged to continue its support to Ukraine in all aspects, providing military equipment, cooperation among defense industries, with the development of co-production, training, intelligence, civil aid, etc.
We have prepared and signed an ambitious, very substantive security agreement, and it is very important that there are very specific agreements with these, our partners. We are all together, and this union of the United States, Europe, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, we need this union to defeat the Russian Federation, which came to us with an unprovoked war.
Kiev troops withdrew from Ukraine's southeastern part of Avdiivka to avoid encirclement amid escalating battles on Saturday. The State Border Guard Service of Ukraine released a video showing fierce fighting in Avdiivka. The withdrawal follows months of fierce Russian attacks and marks the biggest change on the front lines since Moscow troops captured Bakhmut in May 2023. Ukraine said the decision provided no strategic advantage for Russia. The commander of Ukraine's southeastern sector, Alexander Tarnavsky, said Ukrainian units pulled back with minor losses. Bureau Report, DD India.
In a civil fraud case verdict, a New York court has mandated the former US President Donald Trump to pay $354 million, and Trump's defense plans to challenge the ruling and the former president, they've claimed the case was part of a left-wing witch hunt to stop him from becoming the president again. William Denslow reports.
New York's Attorney General Letitia James was calling for the judge to make Donald Trump pay $370 million in penalties and receive a lifetime ban from operating a business here in the state of New York.
Today, justice has been served. Today, we prove that no one is above the law. No matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are, everyone must play by the same rules. We have a responsibility to protect the integrity of the marketplace. And for years, Donald Trump engaged in deceptive business practices and tremendous fraud. Donald Trump falsely, knowingly, inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself, his family, and to cheat the system. Donald Trump may have authored the art of the deal, but he perfected the art of the steal.
The Attorney General didn't get that, but she got pretty close, with the judge ordering Donald Trump to pay over $350 million, as well as giving Donald Trump a 3-year ban from operating a business here in his hometown state. It wasn't just Donald Trump himself that was penalised by Judge Arthur Ngoran. His adult male children also received penalties. They have been ordered, both Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, to both pay $4 million. They are both to receive a 2-year ban from operating a business in New York each. This, of course, comes just a few weeks after a separate judge in a separate case ordered Donald Trump to pay to the tune of $83 million in a case that he was accused of defaming the writer E. Jean Carroll, after a judge had previously said that he was liable for sexual assault as well. So Donald Trump's legal bills are certainly racking up. This announcement comes in a week where a judge has announced that he will face his first criminal trial in the state on March 25th. That in connection to alleged ties that Donald Trump had paid hush money to a porn star in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. After the judge's verdict was announced this Friday, Donald Trump's team sent out an email to his supporters saying that this was an undeniable election interference and a witch hunt.
These are corrupt people. These are people that shouldn't be allowed to do the things they do. And they're using this as weaponization against a political opponent who's up a lot in the polls and always will be, because I'm competing with a man who can't put two sentences together, who doesn't know what he's doing.
Interestingly, we also heard in the ruling from the judge himself where he said that the lack of remorse from Donald Trump bordered on the pathological. Donald Trump maintains that he has done nothing wrong, and all of the various cases, be it civil or criminal, he denies wrongdoing, saying that they are all examples of election interference and a product of a weaponized justice system. In New York, William Denslow reporting for DD India.
Let's take a look now at other stories making the news around the world. Iran unveiled new weaponry on Saturday, including Arman anti-ballistic missile system and the Azaraksh low-altitude air defense system. The announcement came amid heightened tensions in the region. Thousands of people rallied in Croatia's capital on Saturday, accusing the ruling centre-right party of corruption and demanding that this year's parliamentary elections be held as soon as possible. Regional and world leaders met at the annual African Union Summit in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, on Saturday. The summit comes at a time when there have been multiple coups in West Africa, which the chairman Mahamat described as defiant. The Spanish drag queens competed on Friday evening at the annual carnival of the Gran Canaria island. This is with the explosion of sequins, color, and that makeup as well, and the sound of club tunes. Drag queens Electra won drag queen Electra won the contest at the carnival that will end on Sunday. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. The Indian Air Force conducts exercise Vayu Shakti 24 near Jaisalmer in the Indian state of Rajasthan. We'll go in depth into what's happening at the Munich Security Conference, get some perspective on it. India's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party convenes a 2-day National Council meeting in the national capital, Delhi.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. ISRO launches India's latest weather satellite, Naughty Boy, and after the successful launch, ISRO says Naughty Boy has behaved obediently. India's External Affairs Minister Jaiswal attends the Munich Security Conference, meets the US, EU and British counterparts of his, along with other world leaders. Another Yashasvi Jaiswal century and a Shubman Gill unbeaten 50 give India a sizable lead. On day 3 of the Rajkot Test, the hosts are leading England by 322 runs at stumps with 8 wickets in hand. And now let's go back to our story on the security conference in Munich. And to give us an understanding of what the issues are being discussed there, to give us an opinion on it and help us to understand it better, we have with us Ambassador Anil Kumar Trigunayat, who's a former senior diplomat. Thank you very much, Ambassador Trigunayat. Do you see the world in a lose-lose or a loss-loss dynamic, which is what the Munich Security Report seems to suggest?
Well, normally the international community and the diplomacy should be working on win-win solutions. But what we are witnessing now with the 3 major black swan events is that we have come into a very typical dynamic, and that is a lose-lose dynamic. Everybody is a loser, whether it is the Russia-Ukraine war, whether it was in the pandemic, or now in the Israel-Hamas war. So the whole world is losing in that sense. We are seeing the weaponization of financial instruments. We are seeing the weaponization of food, fertilizer, and fuel. We are seeing the health pandemics debilitating the global economies. We are seeing the intrinsic competition among the states and very often just thinking of themselves at the expense of others. So this is what basically this Munich report, Security Report 2024, that outlined the situation. But of course, at this conference, you have heard Zelensky, and he's been continuing to ask for more money to defeat Russia. Russia is not stopping unmasking new weapon systems. We are seeing Iran today has done another anti-ballistic missile test. So the situation is very, very volatile. Indeed. There is a real fear of the war conflagrating in Middle East at the moment. And it might even go, if you see the other war, of Russia-Ukraine war, which is running into its second year, is could go way beyond for the global conflagration.
Okay.
So I think at this stage, there are real concerns. And unfortunately, what I see is that there is no effort to resolve the problems. There are only an attempt to somehow try to contain the conflagration, which is very difficult to do so if you don't address the real situations or the real issues, which are essentially the cause of these problems.
So to deal with some of those issues, what's happening is that they are wanting to strengthen, in fact, the EU's desire to strengthen the defense industry. Now, does this ultimately, in fact, make the world, less safe or safer? How would you view it?
Well, actually, it's ironical. But the war is an industry by itself. And as you know, whenever there is a war, the military-industrial complex of certain countries tends to prosper, while everybody else has a problem. So today, we have seen, as you have heard, perhaps Olaf Scholz, he was talking about that Europe and America has come together. So the transatlantic alliance in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war has gelled together. But at the moment, if there is a fear that if Trump comes to power, and his views on the NATO and its security architecture are very different. So he will make them pay for every bit of the security that is being ensured for them. So there are a lot of uncertainties exactly how it will play out. But definitely, we are seeing a greater degree of armaments, more hypersonic missiles, there are more weaponization of the space, more newer kind of weapon systems that can destroy the world even much more faster than otherwise. So I think that this is a very disconcerting situation. And Munich Security Conference, as you know, by its very name, talks more about the key security issues.
Right.
I think the peace and conflict issues are also need to be equally addressed within the same vein.
And how do you view China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi saying that whoever tries to decouple from China or in the name of de-risking or something like that would be making a historical mistake? Is this an old story that we are, hearing once again?
Well, China has greatly benefited from perhaps the misconceptions of the West in a long time. They thought that they could change China's political philosophy and its international behavior by engaging with them in the same manner as like the other Western countries, or the same kind of a liberal political order. But China has begun to challenge that liberal order. It says that it can frame its own systems. It can rules, regulations which he thinks is the best, and the ones that have been created by the West in the aftermath of the Second World War are frankly no longer valid. Or to a great extent, I must say that the liberal trading order and liberal world order has also been undermined by these very Western countries who used to champion them. So that is also true. So there is a lot of hypocrisy in the global discourse today. That is why countries like China tend to champion the cause of globalization for that matter, while we are seeing deglobalization, protectionism elsewhere. So that's what they clearly reflective in Wang Yi's this thing. Wang Yi has benefited from this globalization dimension. And now that we are looking at the Western countries getting more into deglobalization and more into these pockets of influence, and once again, the Cold War 2.0 kind of a mindset, and
Yes.
thinking that China is the major challenge for them. Obviously, the Wang Yi's statement is very clearly articulating that. But what we have seen is that in recent past, the United States, which was begun with the decoupling, without realizing the kind of integration that had already happened between the global economies in China, I
Right.
think has moved from decoupling to de-risking. And now even de-risking is, in my view, not that very sharp, at
Right.
least in the near term, although that is an objective of the United States.
So
and the
let's
West.
bring India into the picture then, Ambassador Trigunayat. Do you see India emerging as a key player in the security environment beyond the Indo-Pacific theatre?
Well, I think that India is basically tries to have a defense posture, has the defense capabilities. Given its own economic, it has never had an offensive intent or tried to have an offensive capability. But since the region in our own region is the most volatile region, be it West Asia, be it the Indo-Pacific, be it the Indo-Ocean, I think that is what we need to be very, very careful about. And apart from that, there are non-traditional security threats for India, like terrorism. We are having the climate change problem. So all those also issues require India to take a greater lead. I mean, I do not see India. India is, of course, one of the major countries that provides relief supplies and is a first responder from Maldives to Turkey. So I think that that is also a dimension of the security which India provides. India has been part of the vaccine metri, for example, providing health security across the world. It has been a part of food security chain also. So it has been trying to work on those dimensions.
Yes.
But in the hardcore security, I think apart from the peacekeeping operations in which we are the leaders, I don't see India playing a very major role in the crisis and conflict situation. Our objective essentially is to secure India in the first place. And that's what I think is going forward is going to be our major motto, whether it is through multi-alignments or whether it is through bilateral engagements with different countries or by ourselves.
Right, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Anil
Thank you.
Trigunayat, former senior diplomat. Thank you for your
Thank you.
inputs and understanding. Now, the Indian Air Force conducted the exercise Vayu Shakti 24 near Jaiswal in the Indian state of Rajasthan. So this exercise, it saw the participation of the Tejas, the Prachand, the Dhruv, as well as the Rafale, the Mirage 2000, the Sukhoi 30 MKI, the Jaguar, among others. Let's take a look at this report.
44 bombs have been dropped by 2 Sukhoi 30. Pokhran range near Jaisalmer reverberated with thunderous explosions and applause as the Indian Air Force showcased its offensive capabilities through an enthralling and formidable display of its firepower.
Terrorist camp ko tabah kar diya gaya hai.
The event began with 3 Chetak helicopters trooping the national flag and the Air Force ensign, flying past the grandstand. This was followed by a perfectly timed sonic boom created by a Rafale aircraft. 2 Jaguar aircraft flying at low levels followed the Rafale, taking high-fidelity reconnaissance images of the area. In keeping with this year's theme of the exercise, Lightning Strike from the Sky, over 120 aircraft displayed the IAF's offensive capabilities. Fighter aircraft of the Indian Air Force, including the Rafale, the Sukhoi 30 MKI, MiG-29, Mirage 2000, Tejas and Hawk, attacked and destroyed simulated enemy targets on ground and in the air with deadly precision. Keeping up with the technological advancements in combat domain and the lessons learned from recent conflicts, the IAF also displayed a long-range unmanned drone which destroyed a simulated enemy radar site with pinpoint accuracy. An IAF Rafale also successfully engaged an aerial target with a beyond visual range air-to-air missile. Combat support operations by transport aircraft included a containerized delivery system dropped by a C-17 heavy lift aircraft and an assault landing by a C-130J carrying IAF Special Forces Garuds. The Apache attack helicopter demonstrated its firepower in this event for the first time by engaging targets with air-to-ground guided missiles, while Mi-17 helicopters engaged ground targets with rockets. As the sun set on the horizon, Garuds inserted by Mi-17 helicopters carried out an urban intervention demonstrating their prowess in anti-terror or insurgency operations aimed at clearing hideouts of inimical elements. The indigenous air defense systems, Akash and Samar missile systems were also showcased, destroying multiple aerial targets. Night events displayed for the first time the capabilities of indigenous light combat helicopter Prachand, wherein it neutralized a designated target with rockets.
The Air Force is carrying out its major firepower demonstration, a biennial exercise called Vayu Shakti 2024, here over the skies of Pokhran near Jaisalmer in Rajasthan. Now, this exercise will test the defensive and offensive capabilities of the Air Force, apart from testing the firepower, the lethality and accuracy of the weapons delivery systems of the Air Force, including missiles, air-to-air and air-to-ground weapons. With camera person Shubham Sharma at the Pokhran ranges, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
So let's take a look now at other stories making the news. The Chief of India's Eastern Army Command, Lieutenant General R.C. Tiwari, conducted an inspection of More and Behang areas situated along the Indo-Myanmar border with the aim of assessing the security status in the state of Manipur. And Indian naval warship INS Chennai, which rescued the hijacked bulk carrier MV Leela Norfolk in January, reached Chennai port on Friday. The Indian Navy's Marine Commandos rescued 21 crew members in a swift operation in the North Arabian Sea after armed pirates had attempted to hijack that vessel. The 49th Annual Scientific Conference and Continuing Medical Education Program was organized by the Indian Railway Health Service Association on February 16 and the 17th at the B.C. Roy Auditorium in Sialdah in the Indian state of West Bengal. A conflagration erupted within a shop located in a market vicinity adjacent to gate number 10 within India's Pune city. Now, 4 fire tenders were deployed at the scene, diligently striving to contain the blaze. Still to come here in DD India News Hour. In Pakistan, the Rawalpindi commissioner admits the polls were rigged and resigns. India takes a comfortable lead against England on day 3. And the Khelo India University Games, Ashtalakshmi, kicks off from Saturday. Also, New Delhi is ready to welcome the blooming season with the Tulip Festival. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Uncertainty continued to prevail in Pakistan over the government formation. Supporters of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party held demonstrations against alleged polling rigging. Now, in the big revelation that came out, the Rawalpindi Commissioner admitted that rigging had taken place in Rawalpindi division. He also tendered his resignation after taking responsibility for it. The Nawaz Sharif's Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz slammed the media for alleging that elections were rigged and spreading lies.
Supporters of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf of former Prime Minister Imran Khan staged protests at various places across the country against alleged poll rigging in the country's recent concluded elections. The protests were held in Peshawar, Islamabad, Faisalabad and other cities. In a shocking revelation, Rawalpindi Commissioner Liaquat Ali Chhata held a press conference accepting responsibility for manipulating of poll results. He also announced his resignation.
मैंने जो इस इलेक्शन में गलत काम किया है, रावलपिंडी के 13 एमएलए की सीटें जो हारी हुई लोगों को हमने जितवाया है, लोगों की 70 हजार की लीड को हमने उनकी शिकस्त में बदला है और आज भी हमारे लोग बैठ के जेली मोहरे लगा रहे हैं। मैं माजरत चाहता हूं आपके तमाम रिटर्निंग ऑफिसर से जो मेरे मातहत काम कर रहे थे, जो बेचारे रो रहे थे जब मैं उनको कह रहा था कि आप ये काम गलत काम करें और वो नहीं करना चाह रहे थे।
However, his allegations triggered a reaction in Pakistan. The Chief Justice of Pakistan, Qazi Faiz Isa, demanded evidence of his involvement in the rigging, while Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz slammed media, saying they are spreading lies without any evidence. In social media post on X, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz wrote, "Few media channels have been given the task of making these elections controversial. They are churning out lies daily without any evidence. This is alarming. Journalism was never this sold." Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz also slammed Imran Khan's party for seeking US intervention.
क्या आप अमेरिका की मदाखलत चाहते हैं कि मुल्क में डेमोक्रेसी ढीर हो जिसकी मिन्नतें और जिसको आवाजें दी जा रही हैं? क्या आप चाहते हैं कि वही ग्रोह जिसने 2018 में आरटीएस को बिठाकर पाकिस्तान का मैंडेट चोरी किया था, 4 साल इस मुल्क को माशी बहरान, माशरती बहरान और सियासी बहरान में धकेला गया, उसके बाद पॉलिटिकल विक्टिमाइजेशन, फसाद, फितना मचाया गया।
Authorities imposed prohibitory orders in Islamabad as jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party began nationwide protest against alleged rigging and stealing of its mandate in the recent elections. Syed Afzarul Hassan for DD India.
The jailed former Thailand Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra is set to be released on February 18. He had made a dramatic homecoming last year from self-imposed exile after 15 years and was put under hospital detention since August. His 8-year jail term was commuted to a year by the king after his return, and he has served 6 months in hospital because of an undisclosed illness. Here's DD India's Mihir Makuri with the report.
Thailand's political landscape is poised for a significant moment as the kingdom's former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra is said to be released from hospital detention on Sunday. The news was shared by Thailand's Prime Minister Shrestha Thavisin and comes just 6 months after Shinawatra returned from over 14 years of self-imposed exile. The telecom tycoon was jailed for 8 years on corruption charges upon returning to Thailand in August last year. His return coincided with his party's alliance with pro-military parties. Subsequently, Thailand's king reduced Shinawatra's sentence to 1 year. Now let's take a look at what led to Thaksin's downfall. Corruption. Thaksin was accused of corruption during his time as Prime Minister of Thailand, specifically for his family's business dealings and his government's policies. In the year 2006, he was charged with corruption-related offences, abuse of power. He faced allegations of abusing his political influence and power during his tenure as Prime Minister. Conflict of interest. Thaksin was accused of having a conflict of interest in certain government decisions that benefited his family businesses. Election Commission violations. He was also accused of violating Election Commission laws of Thailand. Shinawatra's release does not guarantee relief, as he could still face further legal troubles. Public prosecutors are considering charging him for insulting the Thai monarchy during a 2015 media interview. Only time will tell how his comeback into Thai politics will unfold. Mihir Makri, DD, India.
India's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party convened a two-day National Council meeting in the national capital, New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the meeting at the Bharat Mandapam. The BJP National President JP Nadda, the Union Minister Amit Shah and other senior leaders were present. With the participation of more than 11,500 delegates, the gathering has witnessed the adoption of resolutions reflecting on the 10 years of Prime Minister Modi's government, along with discussions on the upcoming general elections.
में मोदी जी की सरकार की हैट्रिक लगेगी, थर्ड टर्म आएगा और हम तीसरी आर्थिक शक्ति बनकर तैयार होंगे, ये भी हमको ध्यान रखना है। हमारे कुछ विरोधी पार्टी के लोग बड़े अर्थशास्त्री आजकल बने हुए हैं। ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही है, ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही है। मैं उनको बार-बार बोलता हूं, हाँ तुम्हारी ग्रोथ तो नहीं हो रही है तो पक्की बात है, इसमें तो कोई दो राय नहीं है और होगी भी नहीं। लेकिन देश की ग्रोथ रेट को अगर देखना हो तो वो तीव्र गति से आगे बढ़ रहा है और आईएमएफ ने भी कहा है कि अगर ब्राइट स्पॉट कोई है तो वो भारत है।
Following concerns over the use of pesticides in basmati rice, the proprietor of the world-famous Lal Killa brand of basmati rice, Avrindapal Singh, has called upon the government of the North Indian state of Punjab to continue with the ban on the use of harmful pesticides in basmati variety of rice. Earlier in 2023, the government of the Indian state of Punjab had issued directions to stop the sale, stock and the distribution of some insecticides on basmati crop in the state, which were constrained in the export of basmati rice.
इस तजवीज़ दे नाल साडी जिहड़ी बासमती है, असी एरकी साल काफ़ी सारी बासमती जिहड़ी है सानू पेस्टिसाइड मुक्त बासमती मिली है, जिस बासमती नू असी विदेशों दे विच एक्सपोर्ट भी किया है और एरकी साल सानू बहुत घट रिफ्यूजल्स इहो जी कोई आईयां ने जिहड़ियां विदेशों दे विचों। इस दे नाल सानू एक बड़ा इंडस्ट्री नू उत्साह मिलिया है और असी चाहांगे कि पंजाब सरकार इस जिहड़े 8-10 हानिकारक पेस्टिसाइड ने इन्हां नू आने वाले सालों दे विच भी बैन रखे, खास करके जो पैडी का सीजन आता है, बासमती का सीजन आता है, उहदे विच इन्हां नू बैन कर रखे।
And sports news now, and India have taken a comfortable lead, 322 runs at stumps on day 3 in the second innings of the ongoing third test against England at Rajkot. That's India's second innings, the third innings of the match. Yashasvi Jaiswal slammed his third test century, which took the game away from England in that final session. Jaiswal, in fact, returned to the pavilion because he was retired hurt on 104, so he can come back and bat. But Shubmal Gill had also scored an unbeaten half-century. He was unbeaten on 65. Earlier in the day, on day 2, in fact, England had started the day in a strong position with Ben Duckett leading England's charge, but they soon lost the plot. India staged a comeback, bundling England out for 319, owing to a terrific performance from Mohammad Siraj and company. Siraj returned with 4 wickets, while Kuldeep Yadav and Jadeja took 2 wickets apiece. This is day 3 action. The Khelo India University Games 2023, Astalakshmi. This has started from Saturday in Guwahati in Assam, where more than 200 universities are participating in this mega sporting event. The official inauguration ceremony will be held on the 19th of February in Guwahati. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be taking part in it virtually. The Assam Chief Minister, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, chaired a meeting on Friday at the Lok Seva Bhavan in Guwahati. The Chief Minister directed officials to take necessary measures to ensure arrangements are made for the participating athletes and the students. They get a smooth and comfortable stay there. And spring is soon upon us in Delhi, and Delhi is ready to welcome the blooming season with the Tulip Festival. The second edition of this festival promises a 12-day extravaganza, offering Delhiites a chance to marvel at these beautiful flowers in full splendor. Let's take a look.
The iconic avenue of Shantipat in New Delhi has been transformed into a tapestry woven with hues of blooming tulips. These rare and captivating tulips were sourced from the Netherlands, a symbol of blooming bilateral floral diplomacy between the two countries.
Wonderful to see them here, and also so nice to see that also the people in Delhi are getting a little bit, get the spring in their head, and they're here walking in between the tulip fields taking pictures, so that makes me very happy.
Nearly 300,000 tulip bulbs, which were planted in December across central Delhi's parks and gardens, now burst forth in their radiant hues. For 12 years, Sachin Vashisht has nurtured these lawns. This stunning display is a testament to unwavering dedication and passion for his craft.
These tulips come from abroad, mostly from Switzerland and the Netherlands. These plants originate from cold countries. Tulips are like onions. After peeling them off, they are planted 3 inches deep in the ground. They bloom after 3 weeks of planting. We then take care of them by adding fertilizers and urea.
Visitors like Afshin Rizvi and Krishna Brahma briefly escaped their college routine to photograph these mesmerizing tulips.
We had our weekdays with the studies, and we saw the commercial on the news channel. So we decided, we fixed Friday morning. We set an alarm at 7 a.m. in the morning so that we can be here. Only 2 of us were enthusiastic. Everybody else was like, no, we are not disturbing. So we are here and we are mesmerized with all the colors. Like in the auto also we were talking like red and white tulips we have seen, but we were enthusiastic to see all the purple tulips, and it was worth it.
While such exhibitions highlighting the significance of green and floral diplomacy mark a positive stride forward, but it's the creation of green oases within our cities generating potential economic value that holds the key to fostering a sustainable future. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
Clearly worth it. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lin. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.